Hey guys, this is Eric Weingartner with Weingartner Racing. I know as you're listening, you're thinking, man, another voiceover. No, this whole video is not going to be a voiceover, I promise. But today's video is dealing with what this situation is. If you're porting heads and you're not used to this, this might be new to you. If you've done it before, you'll understand exactly what this is. What you need to look at, and I should have made a mark, but look for that little blister right there. You're going to see some CNC lines, and then you see a little transition, but right above that transition, you see what looks like a little blister, that little ova there. What that is where you get machined or you ported too far and it starts to blister. Now, this is not a hole. So if I were to vacuum test it right now, it'd perfectly be fine. But it will move if you push your finger. And if you push a little bit hard, you can make a hole. So a lot of people I know would just send it. It is what it is. But I don't, because I know with heating and cooling, eventually what happens is that blister there, which is not a hole, will eventually crack, and then it will make a hole. Being that this is on the push rod slot, this is also where it would be either, one, you're going to have a vacuum leak, and two, you could suck in oil. So today's video is how do you fix it, or how do I fix it, I guess you could say, and the things that go involved with it. So there you go. Let's get started. This is another problem with having that slot like it is. This is another set of AFR heads. These are actually AFR 195 heads. That shaft rocker setup you see there is a Jessel shaft rocker setup system that's supposed to fit this 195 head. With the 5/16 push rod, as you can tell, it's hitting the outside of the hole. So you got to machine that hole out just to make that push rod actually clear. By the way, that is the stock part number, Jessel Pro Series, for the AFR 195 heads, which, by the way, they want to charge a 20% restocking fee to get the proper offset where they put the push rod in the center of the hole. So just something to keep in mind. All right, guys, here's the heads, or at least what they look like stock. This is an AFR 220, so you can get an idea what I'm talking about on how it came to be and how things got messed up, or how do you fix it. So what AFR does, is you can look through this one, is they have a round hole, but it's different. At the top, they did machine this like a D right through here, which you can kind of see. And if you look at the last picture, this is the way it should be. For whatever reason, and I should have checked it, this is on me, not on AFR, because I should have checked it before I ever started grinding. What I didn't notice was the transition. If you look at this transition where the CNC line ends and where that round drilled hole is right here, you'll see that the lines match up really nicely. But if you look back at the beginning of the video and you watch the one where it had that blister, you'll notice that there's a really, really big notch right there. That's just because it looks like they machined too much here. Hence, there's even less material. I should also point out that head that I'm showing you the repair on, I had ported that, but I'd never port this side, the push rod pinch side of an AFR head. And that's a lesson for all of you. Because when I was at AFR, they had cutaways, so they cut the heads in sections, and I was able to measure. It's only like 30 thousandths thick, so it's really, really thin anyway. So you can't expect to gain any area there at the push rod pinch because you just break through. So anyway, that's the head. Now, not all heads are this way, small block Chevys and whatnot. And I know you're like, well, this is a small block Chevy, won't apply to Ford. Ford to be fixing the same way. Ford, you're even more unlucky because almost every one of your heads is like this. But anyway, not all heads are this way. For instance, this is a Pro Max, which allegedly is a copy of an AFR. If you notice, they're just a straight hole. And this is actually, when AFR gets theirs from the first machining process, the hole's already in it, they do this part themselves, this D thing. Now, not all heads are this way, because if you look at, this is a Brodix. I love what they do. If you notice, it's all machined out, and it's just that way. Great. Because the problem with this is when you've got this big old chunk of aluminum right through here and here, it's tricky to fix it. So if it's a round one like this, what a lot of people will do is they'll just put a brass tube through there and call it good. I don't like doing that because those tubes don't always seal 100% because that hole that's drilled is not perfectly round all the way through. It's got waves in it. Think of it like whenever you hone a cylinder on a head or on a engine, the block, they're not always, there could be a thousandths taper or something. So then that tube you put through here won't always seal. So I prefer to always have them welded. So, and with the AFR, you can't even do that because if you notice, because they do this D at the top, and that's actually at the top where the blister was. If you put a tube through there, you're not even going to seal the part that needs sealing. So the way that you have to do it, for me, is, and that's the reason why you saw that aluminum there, this whole bar through here, this chunk right here, I put it in the mill and just milled it out to get rid of it, get it out of my way. And the reason why is because I'm having someone weld it, and I'm not a welder. I'll straight up tell you, I pay someone to weld because, you know, I'm not good at it, especially aluminum. So anyway, it's hard to get a torch in. I know that enough to get a torch in here and do it right, especially the filler rod. So to give them more room, machined all that out. Because not only that, yeah, they could probably weld it right here because it's right here. Yeah, he probably could have. But I still have to grind that out so that it's the same dimensions and that it fills the gap there. So to make more room, that gets machined. So if you have to, machine that out. Now, let me show you this picture real quick. This is what it looks like after it gets welded. Again, I had someone else weld this. I'm not capable of doing this. It'd have been a mess. So anyway, as you could tell, he welds on the outside and then puts a little on the inside. And even though that blister looked small, something to keep in mind, anytime you add heat to it, it kind of blows out. So it's going to grow. And that's the reason why it looks larger than what it is, but you've got them on both sides now. This is what it looks like when it's all done. So what I'll end up doing is I'll grind it down and do very, very small steps. So I get a pretty aggressive burr at the beginning just to knock off, then less until I finally get to the cartridge roll to get to this. Now I know you're thinking, well, shouldn't it all the way be gone? No, this is a tip for you if you have to do this. You actually leave it a little high, and I'm going to tell you why. When you weld aluminum, it sinks in. So even though you could make this entirely flush and look like it totally transitions and it's perfect, the thing is, it's deeper if you do that. Because like I said, when you add heat, it will sink in. So you can actually leave it like this and it's fine. So you might say, well, how do you know it's fine? One, this guy's running a shaft rocker anyway with a 220 offset, which is enough for a 3/8 push rod, but it gives it like more clearance than a regular stud mount. But usually what I'll do is I've got mock-up blocks and stuff. And what I'll do is I'll put a rocker through and a push rod and check to make sure. I'm telling you now, this one's fine. Especially because of this D slot here at the top. I don't know if you catch it. It's actually angled down this way. So it's further out of the way of the push rod anyway. So it's fine. Now, what it looks like on the inside. So what I'm trying to say is if you're grinding this and you have the same problem, don't feel like you have to grind it to where it looks like nothing's still there. One, the push rod's never out here, so don't worry about that. Just worry about where it's actually going to run. But don't worry about making it totally disappear because, like I said, it's actually deeper in there. So, now what does it look like on the inside of the port? Well, let me just move my head here. Move the camera down here. Looks like that. It's kind of dirty, but there. And by the way, that's dirt. I haven't cleaned it, obviously. But, yeah, it's that part should look like it's almost invisible, like you can't see it. That's what it should look like, and that's what it is. Dimensionally, it actually ends up correct too. And you can tell what I mean. Look, this is stock, and see how it sinks in? Just barely in some spots. So, because that's right there where the weld kind of starts, and you see how it sinks? And then it gets bigger where this part is, just slightly. That's what I mean. Good to go. And weird part is, if you ever do this, you'll end up finding out that you actually, when you have that, you end up with more clearance than what you had before. I mean, larger push rod pinch than you had before. And this is a little bit stronger aluminum, less likely to worry about it. Now, in the end, you might say, are you worried about it sealing? Every head I do, as far as assembled heads, they get vacuum tested, so it'll find out if it's got a leak or not. But obviously, through the visual inspection, it's not there, and I highly doubt that there will be, but it gets checked anyway. Anyway, hopefully that gives you some insight on how to actually fix it. What you should not do, and I know a lot of people do this, is use epoxy. Because the easy thing would have been when you saw that little blister, just put some epoxy, call it good. It's nothing exactly wrong with using epoxy, except for this. I don't care how good the epoxy is, I don't care how good you installed it, eventually it's coming out. And it just is what it is. And this is permanent, so I don't have to worry about this ever coming out in this head. Something else will fill in the head, that weld will still be there. That epoxy, may not come out this year, may not come out in 5 years, but eventually it's going to come out. So, and the catch is like right now, because this is a prime example. I did not do this one. This one right here. Somebody, this head I got sent in to freshen up, right there it is. That's the same situation. That one has to be epoxy. Why? Because this is cast iron. So I am going to epoxy up that one because there's no other choice. It's not ideal, but that's what's going to happen. So on cast iron heads, you got to do what you got to do. Just make sure you clean it real well, give it some grit on there so the epoxy can hold, and it is what it is. But an aluminum head, I just don't see why you shouldn't just weld it. Anyway, thanks for watching. You guys take care.